shipping containers to fill Oakland lot, preventing a dangerous homeless encampment from returning. Now, this homeless encampment's been cleared by the city of Oakland 5-6 times over the last 8 years, and each time they clear it out, somebody takes their RV and just bashes through, runs over the cyclone fence, sets up another encampment. Away they go. Well, this time, they're going to double stack shipping containers to provide a perimeter and block out those pesky homeless. Let's get into it. Here we go. This is another podcast on the same building site, in fact. Oakland Homeless Encampment added as a business on Google. That is pure geniusness. I think all homeless encampments should have a listing on Google that everybody can review. Give it a 1-star rating. Give it a minus rating. And have the phone numbers for the encampment to your local politician so they get all the calls. Put their email up there. Make Google take it down. I'm okay with this. I think this is a very easy way to bring attention to a problem that otherwise doesn't get identified. But we're not going to focus on the whole encampment added as a business on Google. We're going to take a quick, let's watch this video here.
Well, one sign of a trade deficit is all of those containers coming into the port of Oakland loaded with stuff and no American products to ship back. So what do you do with all the empty containers? Well, you do what Berkeley did.
Here's our site.
Or use them as something. Donald Lynn's got that story.
2019, 23.
They just started stacking up these shipping containers. The idea is to build a fortress around this private lot and prevent the RVs from returning.
Yeah, so we'll line it from the start of the freeway all the way down to the end of the street here. It's 40 feet long, 8 feet wide, and about 6,000 pounds heavy.
That's how much each empty container.
This is re-encampment prevention, Oakland style. Don't have a society where people follow the law. Create other physical barriers that make it virtually impossible for anything to penetrate the exterior of this building site. This is absolutely nuts. But then again, what do you expect? This is Oakland, right?
Ways. Jeff Alberto says these heavy containers will form a wall and end the encampment problem.
There's really no dragging it. It's more of like a land anchor right now.
Jeff owns Oakland Container Services. He just started leasing the land from the property owner for his growing container business. He partnered with the city of Oakland and Caltrans to clear the large encampment last week.
Utilize it as a storage depot as we anticipate to have about 250 to 300 containers in here.
He says it's a win-win. He needs the land, and the city has been trying to get rid of the encampment here for about 8 years.
I put up a fence, a wrought iron fence, and people just run over it, tear it down like it's no big deal.
The city worked with the property owner and cleared the encampment at least 5 times in recent years. We captured this removal back in 2019, but each time, within a couple of weeks, people would drive cars to plow over the fence and occupy the land. Many frustrated businesses and neighbors threatened to leave.
I'm trying to keep Home Depot here in Oakland due to their job creation that they have.
Oakland city leaders took a page from how UC Berkeley shield off.
Let's go back. Look at that. Look at that. This is People's Park in Berkeley. And they basically took the entire perimeter and put 2-story, set of shipping containers there. As they were trying to develop the site, they were trying to build on the site for affordable housing for one of the Berkeley schools. I mean, so their solution wasn't to make it illegal and to, arrest people as they come onto the site. It was to literally put up a massive steel barrier. This is what they come up with. It's like, okay, what can we do? Mind-blowing that this is a solution in California to homelessness. This is it. This is the best that they can come up with. Well, temporarily, let's go ahead and we'll create this massive eyesore and we'll just call it good. Just call it good. That's what they did. That's what they're doing. this is what's going on.
Berkeley shield off People's Park with shipping containers. And Jeff, an Oakland native, happens to need a lot of space for his business. Jeff has already done the same setup on a neighboring lot.
We won't have this issue no more. I believe I could guarantee that almost.
While neighbors...
You can, because you can't get a car through a shipping container. Nobody's gonna do that. But what does that do for the surrounding community? It's like rats when you get rid of a homeless encampment. They gotta go somewhere, right? Or it's like cockroaches when they tear down a building in big urban setting. Where do those cockroaches go? Away. Out. And then they're, it's whack-a-mole. You've got them off of this site. Now they're next door. Now they're a half mile down the road. They're wherever. This isn't a solution. This is a stopgap. And all it does is get people off of this site and moves them somewhere else. So problem solved in the short term, but long term, you got nothing. And that's what I talk about so often, is that with the homeless situation where you've allowed the homeless just to take over entire parcels of land like this, you don't have a long-term solution because you've got people that are used to this lifestyle. They're doing drugs. They're leaving their garbage wherever, involved in human trafficking, purchasing and selling stolen goods, whatever it takes, stealing from Home Depot, stealing from McDonald's, whatever, going in and using their restroom. I mean, McDonald's and Home Depot must absolutely hate this site.
And businesses support the move. They want the city to house the homeless. Some of the former Encampment residents are still waiting for transitional and permanent housing.
We don't have nowhere to go. That's what we looking forward towards the city, for them to come help us find somewhere to go. But since they don't do that, I can't even answer that question and tell you where I'm gonna go.
I moved my...
Now, the vast majority of people that live in these encampments, when asked if they would go into a shelter, they oftentimes say no, because they would prefer to live in their own car, no rules, do all the drugs they want, keep doing that kind of thing, buy and sell stolen goods, whatever it is, and go down that road. They don't want to be in a system that has, rules, that has structure. They balk at that. So you have all these folks at the end of a homeless encampment that get swept out who come up with this and that as to why they don't want to, have formal shelter. But oftentimes so many of these people have been offered. In Oakland, I think it's a free-for-all. You've just got an absolute free-for-all from the mayor down, right? I mean, you've got some real corruption going on there. You've got, a society that is basically essentially decaying. And that's why you have to, because Berkeley isn't that far away from this encampment. That's why you have to approach it with such a heavy-handed effort of, let's put 12,000 pounds barricade, because that's what it's going to take to stop the homeless from coming onto this building parcel.
A trailer to the next open spot that I could find.
Councilman Noel Gallo says the city has a major budget deficit and is working with limited funds. Jeff understands the complexity. He hopes this will work out for everyone.
I appreciate all the support, and, all I can say is I love my city.
Jeff and the city hope to remove the remaining 2 RVs at the site by Tuesday and have all of the shipping containers stacked up and done by Wednesday. By the way, Noel Gallo says they can't build affordable housing here because this site is super contaminated. It would cost a lot of money to clean it up.
Super contaminated, but we've allowed people to live there for 8 years. That's how much compassion we have for a fellow human being. Go out there, do drugs, little sex trafficking, human trafficking, you name it. Buy and sell whatever. Leave your garbage wherever. It's a known contaminated site, and now it's even further contaminated with all that nonsense that you got with the homeless encampment scenario. So, yeah. So they're going to bang out the installation of these storage containers, because the faster they do that, the faster it is that people get the message, oh, yeah, we can't put up our tent here. We can't put up our ramshackle whatever here. We got to move on. Okay, so we briefly touched on People's Park in Berkeley. This is a 1.5-minute video that kind of gives us a little bit of a closer look into what's going on. Here is a shipping container just being installed. I mean, it is a gigantic forklift. And this was about a year ago. This was from January of 2024. This is what they had to do there, Berkeley, California. Cleaning up. I talked about it in the other video where I focused on the homeless encampment being identified on Google Maps as a business. Could you imagine if you were in one of these apartments and all of a sudden you didn't have, you're maybe first, second floor, you didn't have anything blocking your view. Maybe you're over here. You didn't have anything blocking your view. And then all of a sudden, boom, these shipping containers come. It would just be, what happened? Well, that's what happens when you've got leadership that doesn't drop the hammer on people living willy-nilly wherever, because you've created such a situation in California, especially in Oakland, in San Francisco, in LA. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on, right? You could go up and down West Coast, Best Coast. You got Seattle, you got Portland, you got Vancouver, BC. You've got, it's just the Sacramento. Homelessness just is never ending because you've built it and they will come. You give out resources. You let them live wherever the F they want, to the point where the only thing that the city can do, municipalities can do, is stack up storage containers.
Shortly before 1 a.m., we began the process of clearing the People's Park site and the installation of a perimeter to the site for construction. We are currently awaiting...
Let's go back and see that for a second.
Construction.
I'd like to look out at that. All of a sudden, this is your view. Look at that. You know what? It's probably better than what goes on with the homeless tweakers, right? It's better than hearing screaming in the middle of the night as some chick who's delusional on drugs may or may not be getting raped. And that's a big storyline out there, is so many of the females who are claiming they're being assaulted. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. We don't know, because they're psychotic out of their minds. Yet another reason that you can't let people live just wherever the F they want and do a whole bunch of drugs. It's not going to work out. But getting back to our story, how'd you like to look out at that? Let me know what you would do if all of a sudden this was your view. Yeah.
To ready the site for construction. We are currently awaiting the resolution of a legal matter before the California State Supreme Court, which we are anticipating will be in our favor. And as soon as that happens, we will begin construction on the student housing, supportive housing, and new park space for the site. We are constructing a perimeter using shipping containers, which are going to be double stacked, about 15 to 16 feet high, that will extend around the site.
So we see the People's Park as being one of the few places left.
No justice, no peace. Now, that was applicable to the fentanyl Floyd era, but where's the lack of justice here? The justice here is that you don't have any stinky homeless people illegally occupying a plot of land that's going to be developed. So no justice, no peace. Okay, justice has been served. The trespassers are gone. So you gotta come up with some more chants. You gotta come up with some more stuff, because having just a limited number of chants, it's not really going to work.
Where you could sit down on a bench, you could talk with your neighbors. There are trees. Berkeley is known throughout the world as the birth of the free speech movement and People's Park.
And look where it got them. This is what happens when you have a misguided society based on compassion that shouldn't be there. Instead of tough love, hey, you need to be in treatment. Hey, you should probably be in jail. Hey, you need to be in a mental institution. We'll just let them live wherever the F they want, do whatever activities they want, and it's all good. That's what you've got. And that ends up in this kind of solution. Well, let's just stack a lot of steel around. It'll be good.
They should build housing and low-income housing elsewhere and leave the park alone. There's only one People's Park.
This owner walks quite the distance to attend summer classes.
30 to 35-minute walk from one of my classes that I was just coming from.
Wow, half hour.
In August, she and other students say housing shortage means paying for higher rent and living farther away from campus.
It's pretty difficult to find housing here, and you're going to have to expect it to be pretty.
I love the fact that they have the shipping containers right behind her. Look at that backdrop. That is phenomenal.
Expensive. The academic rigor here is just insane, and it's so much pressure on so many people that the last thing that I think students should be worrying about is just having to know if they're going to be able to afford rent or like having a stable place to live.
The university hopes they can reduce.
You know what I think of when I see UC Berkeley on a resume? Next. Yeah.
Some of that problem now that the California Supreme Court has ruled they can build housing at People's Park. The university plans to build housing for 1,100 undergrads, permanent supportive housing for more than 100 homeless people, and preserve about 60% of the site as public park space.
We see this as a win-win. We're going to house our students. We're going to house the homeless.
Berkeley Mayor Jesse Edegin believes UC Berkeley will start construction very soon, possibly within weeks.
The shortage of student housing impacts everyone in our city because it constrains our housing market. It makes it more difficult for people to be able to live in Berkeley. It drives up rents.
Opponents of the project say they're not against student housing. They sue the UC Regents because they say there are better housing sites than People's Park. The park is a hub for activism and political protests. It was placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 2022.
Well, a high-rise in the middle of this park destroys that open space, and of course it destroys the historic nature of the park.
Harvey Smith with People's Park Historic District Advocacy Group is one of the plaintiffs that lost the case. His group has argued the university failed to analyze noise impacts from future residents. State lawmakers recently.
Instead, they'd rather have a bunch of homeless, whacked out nut jobs doing crazy stuff at all hours of the night. That's what they're okay with. Literally. That's what they're okay with. We're going to sue you because you have an impact. You haven't looked at the impacts of noise, of traffic, of utilities, of whatever.
Only passed a bill that voided that argument.
Our representative basically concocted a sweetheart backroom deal with UC.
After years of litigation and protests, housing will finally be built on People's Park.
Obviously, our options are becoming increasingly limited, but it's not over till it's over.
History should not stop us from progress.
All right. So you're going to build student housing, you're going to build some homeless housing, and you're going to have a little park. Ooh, okay. All right. Okay. Whatever. I mean, it's Berkeley, right? It's Berkeley. I hung out at UC Berkeley. It would have been the summer of, oh man, my kids were little. We were down in San Francisco, maybe 1996, something like that. Maybe 95, 96, 90. No, my youngest was 2. I don't know. Late 90s, mid to late 90s, somewhere in there. And, I had never been to Berkeley before, I don't think, and hung out like that. But there was a student there that my wife and I were visiting and, got to see it. It's not exactly my thing, but whatever, right? Whatever. I'm glad I had that perspective then because I can see now where these kind of old timers are saying, it's all about the free speech and, the park and whatnot. But then you've got to balance that with homeless folks who literally take over entire areas, and comparing our quarter, our corner lot versus what you got going on in People's Park is not the same, because one is just absolute urban blight versus a park that's loaded with homeless, folks. There was no RVs, I don't believe, in People's Park, but the end result is the same. They can't control the population from just living wherever the F they want. And so this is their solution. Throw up a whole bunch of storage containers. This is the best that California can come up with. This is what they're doing. Wild. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.